ADHD Babes, the podcast, a podcast hosted by the ADHD Babes community for the community. Join us every 2 weeks to share in our babes' personal experiences, gain useful tools, and be educated by special guests in topics such as ADHD management, relationships, general well-being, tech and fun, culture, and more. Please note, nothing mentioned during the podcast is meant as a diagnosis. If you believe you have ADHD, please seek professional advice and visit or join ADHDBabes.com for help with diagnosis. No clinical diagnosis is required to join. And now, you're listening to the next episode of ADHD Babes, the podcast.
Hello everyone, and welcome to a new episode of ADHD Babes, the podcast. Today's episode will be hosted by me, Renee, and
me, Shauna, and today we're going to be exploring ADHD coaching and how this can help after you've received your diagnosis.
Now, joining us for this discussion today, we have two ADHD coaches. We have IngerShaye Colzie and Jay Reid. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for joining us. So I think we're just going to get right into it, right?
So we've got a diagnosis, or we feel like we've may or may not have ADHD, but we have an inclination. How can ADHD coaching step into that, and where would that come in?
Okay, so when you, first off, please get a diagnosis. I would like to say that. Please get a proper diagnosis. I feel like it is important. There are many things you can do, even if you think you have ADHD, but if you get a proper diagnosis, then you're sure that you're tackling the correct thing that's happening for you. So after you get a diagnosis, and it's like, what do I do next? Well, what will happen next is you'll have to make a decision about medication or not. And after you do that, it's like, what comes after that? Because we always say, like, pills don't teach skills. So there's therapy that you can do for ADHD. It's not really for the ADHD. It's more in like the organizing realm, because what I would like to say too is, like, there's nothing wrong with you. That's kind of my issue with all of this. The fact that you have to go to a psychiatrist to get medication, but there's really nothing wrong with you. It's just the way that your brain is wired. So if you go to therapy, it's not necessarily as it is something that is dysfunctional per se. It's just a different way to get at it. Because I'm a therapist and a coach. When you come to ADHD coaching, what we're going to do is look at your life. We're going to look at your skills. We're going to look at your talents. And we're going to look at where you want to go and how your ADHD affects you. And when we look at those things and move them into action is when we're able to help you move forward, and to be able to acknowledge and then, bolster up your strengths with your ADHD. I hope that answers the question, because I think I got lost.
Yeah, it does.
Really comprehensive.
Yeah, very. And what about you, Jay? What's your take on it?
Well, I have coached people to the point of getting their official diagnosis, right? So they took some online surveys and went, oh, that's me. Or they saw a video on TikTok and went, wow, I think this might be what's going on, right? So sometimes the challenge then is figuring out my health insurance, figuring out who does the testing, who can do my actual diagnosis. Do I need a formal diagnosis? How much testing do I need? All of those things, right? So I've had clients that come to me after doing the survey, and I coach them to that point of, okay, so you've got issues with being able to organize your calendar or figure out what's covered by your health insurance or where to start in this process. So I've coached folks pre-diagnosis and post-diagnosis, and I encourage my clients very much like IngerShaye said, to get an official diagnosis, and where you can and when you can afford to get a comprehensive assessment, because oftentimes you'll have co-occurring learning, what we call learning disabilities or differences along with your ADHD. And so while you're really working on how to navigate life as a neurodivergent person in a neurotypical world, get all the information you can about your brain and how you function. So you can come up with the right strategies for you and get to your, and finally get to your goals. So when I got diagnosed, but then I got a full assessment through the university where I was working on my master's degree in social work. Just graduated last week, by the way.
Oh, congrats.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. So I went through a full battery of tests, hours of testing, and then found out that I also have a visual processing delay thing that happens with my brain. So my eyes see it and my brain processes the visual much slower. That gave me so much information about how I move through the world, right? Now I understand why it took me a long time to figure out the New York subway, why I'm horrible at reading maps, why, right, when with the GPS running, I'm still gonna miss the turn at least once. So it wasn't just my ADHD, that other information then helped me, like IngerShaye said, form a better idea of how my brain works. And so getting a diagnosis and getting medication and all of that, there is a lot of talk about deficits, what you're missing. And coaching is about what you have, right? It's how your brain works, where your strengths lie, and those challenges. Then we can come up with strategies for those. But get all the information that you can from both the diagnosis and a full assessment. If it's something that you have the time and money to do it, because you're just getting more information about you.
Yeah. Wow. Amazing. Thank you both. That was like really, really helpful, because I think that you both covered really, really interesting parts, as you mentioned, IngerShaye, that it's therapy is complementary. And, Jay, you mentioned that I think mindset and how you perceive yourself is really, really important. So it's not that it's a deficit. It's like, how do I have these amazing qualities that maybe make me different from the average person, but how do I navigate the world and learn to win? So thank you both. Really, really great breakdown.
I think I just learned something there as well. Just like, we've only been talking to you for like 2 minutes and I'm like, yeah, well, actually, I should have done that. I should have gone in and get like a comprehensive diagnosis, because I sit there and I think I got my ADHD diagnosis, but this doesn't seem right. And then I'll keep learning about different things and different comorbidities, and I'm just like, okay, I should like explore this. But actually what you're saying about getting like a general assessment would be really helpful. When somebody gets their diagnosis, or even like you said, Jay, about pre-diagnosis, and you just kind of finding it on social media or just come across it from a friend or something like that, where would you kind of both say, okay, calm down, slow down, this is how we're going to start? Like, how would you start that process? Like, how would you advise that people kind of pick the right coach? Should we start with Jay?
What I would say is, and this is where I start with folks, even if they reach out to me and don't, engage me for coaching, is I tell them in this first year post-diagnosis or first year post-revelation about being different, give yourself some time and some space, because you're learning so many new things about yourself. So I was a late in life diagnosee. I didn't know about my ADHD until I was in my early 40s. And I didn't think I could still surprise me anymore in my 40s. I thought I was pretty well, I had Jay pretty well figured out. But this diagnosis and this revelation kind of threw me for a spin. So my first step is to say, if you've not dedicated time in your life before to really figuring out how you think, how you move through the world, give yourself some time to do that, especially the first year post-diagnosis. So my first thing I tell my clients is, know that this is going to be a journey that you need to dedicate some time and energy to. And so be ready to do that and be ready to say no.
Saying no is not always easy.
I know, but if you want to say yes to this opportunity to really know more about yourself and get where you've always wanted to go in life, you may have to say no to some other people so you can say yes to you.
Very true. Very true.
Tell them, Jay. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, I mean, that is so true. It's interesting. Those people come to me, they're a formal diagnosis or they're pretty sure that they have ADHD. It's interesting because when I started this before TikTok really came out, that was it. There wasn't as many people coming out of the woodwork, but when we got to the pandemic and people had to stop what they were doing and all their supports went away. I mean, it's been a flood. It's been a flood of people on the mental health side, and a flood of people were saying, "Oh my goodness, I think I have ADHD." And then the advent of TikTok, I have a love-hate relationship with TikTok because there's a lot of misinformation there on TikTok, but there's a lot of awareness on TikTok, and that's part of the reason why I'm like, get a formal diagnosis, because some people will come and be like, "Oh, well, I forget my keys sometimes, so I have ADHD." It's like, no, honey, you forget your keys, which is okay, right? Doesn't mean you have ADHD. And also sometimes on TikTok, people just living in the learned helplessness, like, because I forget my keys, then I'm a bad person. Because there's not a lot of actionable skills in that type of format. They actually had a study on that. I think it's like 67% of the things on TikTok were either non-actionable or flat out wrong.
So
wow,
67%.
Yeah,
something like that. Yeah, they did a study. So I just caution people, like, if you want to laugh at TikTok, like, that's one thing, but it's not a diagnosis. And also, being a clinician, as Jay was saying, ADHD doesn't usually ride by itself. It rides, it has a partner. Anxiety, depression, sometimes bipolar, but not as much as people might think. I too, Jay, have a visual processing disorder. So there's learning disabilities that go with it. So that's why having a proper diagnosis allows you to be able to kind of parcel this apart and pick, and that's how you can find your strengths and pick the things you need to really bolster up to have a good life. Also, with all of these different parts, like I always say that ADHD, especially for Black women, equals trauma, right? They're just one and the same. So, but trauma itself can mimic ADHD. So it's really, sometimes it's a lot of pulling of hairs to kind of make sure that we're getting to the things that you need, and you might need a lot of different things. But I also say with clinicians, like a lot of clinicians, at least that I know, here in the States, and I mean, I didn't get diagnosed until I was in my 50s, so I beat everybody. I always say it's later diagnosis. So whenever somebody says, I'm like, I can beat that. So I had to figure it out. Like, I had all these years of life figuring it out, right? And that was great because that means I knew I could figure things out. So when I got diagnosed, I didn't look back and go, oh, all the things that I didn't do. I was like, now I know what to work on, because my ADHD brain always wants to work on something. So they can work on for the rest of my life, since it's a chronic disease. Or they say disease, but it's like a chronic condition, but my brain will always be that way. So, and it's funny how we get like automatically go to where there's something wrong. Like, if it's a disease, it's not. I just always want to be sure, like, it's just the way that your brain works. But that's what I was going to say, when you live in that world of psychiatrists and like, I'm a therapist, we are always living in, we're looking at disorders. Right. So when you live in that pathology, sometimes the way they come at it is different than the way a coach comes at it. Which is why I was really drawn to coaching, because it's all about your strengths. It is all about your strengths. And women come to me and they don't realize the strength that they have. And that's where they come with me. So yes, I tell them the same thing that Jay says. It's like, first take a breath. Don't tell your people come out like, if you stop smoking and you tell everybody not to smoke, it's like, calm down a second and give yourself some space in here, like I said, for you. And let's learn what's great about you. And most of it is acceptance, right? Accepting that this is what it is and that's fine. But there are great things like that people that go on for people. Like the fact that our working memory is not great, and the fact that metacognition, thinking about what we're thinking, is not great, doesn't always allow us to know the great things that we do. And that's really where I start people with, like, let's look at the great things that you actually are already doing. And people are always shocked, but then elated.
I feel like there's a tendency, I suppose, negative self-talk, I guess that's just kind of known, where people will kind of always notice, have very big, high awareness of all of the things that they don't like that are their ADHD symptoms. But they completely forget, and I can hold my hands up to being one of those people, they completely forget what the positives are. But also people don't necessarily know that there are any positives to ADHD as well. So that's kind of more educating yourself so you can also educate others. You guys have obviously done that really well because you decided to make a profession where you were helping people. And it seems that you have a real passion in doing this in particular. Would you say that if you, I mean, I don't know, maybe if you didn't have ADHD, would you still be interested in this? Or is it part of that diagnosis that kind of comes in and ties it hand in hand? Because I do see a lot of coaches also have their own diagnosis.
So first of all, I can't answer that question for myself in that this is what I got, right? I wouldn't know what it's like to be any other way. And quite frankly, I wouldn't want to be any other way. Because the people I know that are neurotypical that I love dearly, I love them. I would not want to be linear in life. Like, I don't know, something about that for me makes me, I can't picture that. So this is what I have. But there are a lot of coaches out there that, do have ADHD. And so I they have a perspective that I guess other coaches won't have. But, as a therapist, I can treat people, I might have had their experience, but I can still, help and treat them. So I don't think that if you go with a coach, they don't necessarily have to have ADHD. But what I will say is that you need a coach that you feel comfortable with. Like, that is the most important part, your comfort level. So what I have found is that I coach mostly women, but I will say I have some men. And I coach mostly women, Black women, but I have people of many different races that I coach because they feel comfortable. But I've started a coaching association for Black ADHD coaches, so that if you want to find a coach that looks like you can find one that looks like you. Most women come, like, they'll just see my face and they're like, oh, because they didn't know, they haven't really seen a lot of Black women with ADHD. Let alone ones that are coaching them. I just think we're working in silos and we don't know where each other are. Because I just met like Jay last year, right? So so I just think that it's important for you to have a certain comfort level. And I will say that women I deal with or talk to, we have like a shorthand that Black women have, like, because we've had some of the same experiences, even though everyone's ADHD is individualized, right? So I just think that's really what's important. If you find somebody you feel comfortable with and you vibe, you got a vibe, go with it, because that's the person that's going to be able to help you.
And I think just not to go too off track, but you said earlier that trauma can mimic ADHD, and as Black women, that trauma is inherent. Like, how much do you think that feeds into the kind of coaching that you offer? And obviously you mentioned starting the Association for Black Women. I think that's a really important part, to pick up on. Yeah.
So, I mean, as we all know, sitting here as Black women, and like the people listening, that we come out of the womb with trauma. There's like generational trauma that, is literally in our genes. So that starts off, and then you come out with, you have ADHD. So it's that where you're a Black woman trying to move around in this world with all the different racism, we're here in America. I mean, they're just, how many people got shot at that grocery store like a couple of days ago? But this is happening every day. Like, I have a son that has ADHD. And so I have been traumatized from the day I knew I was having a boy, like a Black boy out here. And then when I found out ADHD, I was traumatized more. So my alert system is on it's already on like 10. It stays on 10. So imagine, trying to keep myself together with my own ADHD and manage the way that my alert system feels because he has ADHD. And then having the ADHD, right? So I have to still manage it as a mom, as an entrepreneur working, As a partner, I have had a spouse for 30 years. As a mom, as a daughter, the sister. And that becomes trauma, because the same way trauma comes and can affect your life and affect your brain and change your brain, it comes with that ADHD. And every time that you've been rejected, every time that you've been misunderstood, that's my big one. Every time that you've not necessarily done the thing that you said that you wanted to do, you start doubting yourself. And that's also trauma. So when you add all these things together, right? Not to mention if you happen to have those outside trauma. I know Jay last year did something about adverse childhood experiences at the conference. And, if you have, there's like a list, which I find a little odd. But if you can check off a lot of those boxes on the list, like you will look and say, well, that also is adding to the trauma.
Yeah.
So when you add all those things together, it's a lot that we have to look through and deal with. However, we are able to do that, right? When we can look at it, take our time, as Jay said, pull it apart, really look at our strengths, not necessarily have to do everything like that Black woman trope, like strong Black woman. We got to do it all. I hung my hat on that one for a minute. That's what I hung my hat on for 50 some odd years. I let that go, right? That's when I got my dad. I was like, oh, I could throw that away. And that's opened my life up for the better. It's like when I really turned to coaching. But then we're able to not have the trauma have it run our lives, right? Because that's kind of what can happen. So trauma is running our lives as much as ADHD. When you can look at it, confront it, accept it, and then figure out the best ways for you to deal with it with a lot of grace and compassion, then you're able to live your life at choice, which is generally, that's my goal with any of my clients. It's like, so you're living your own life, your choice, not the choices of the world, not the choices of the ADHD, not the choices of anything else, but your choice. And people they're just shocked. They didn't even know that was a thing that existed, that they could have their own choice.
I think that definitely is an issue for Black women. We're taught to be there for everyone else but ourselves, or we come last, serve, build. And I think that's a really important aspect. It's my life, and I think that's quite powerful and a wonderful way that coaching can help women empowered.
Especially when you're so used to just seeing the negatives, understanding your trauma and understanding how that connects to who you are today must be so such a weight off your shoulder. Just like a diagnosis is kind of like, oh, okay, I know this is not just like me being a horrible person or something like that. You know what I mean? I definitely, I feel like maybe I need to revisit some stuff after listening to you guys. I do want to knock it back over to you as well, Jay, in terms of actually, I want to hear what IngerShaye was talking about. What were you doing? What project were you doing? There was a conference that IngerShaye mentioned.
Oh, yes, I was able to present about ADHD, adverse childhood events, and trauma at the International ADHD Conference that's held once a year. It's put on by Chad and by ADA, two of the two largest ADHD affiliated nonprofits in the United States. So, and this is my first time doing a conference presentation. And my first time talking about both ADHD and trauma and ACEs at the same time. So, and then got to do some more presentations at my college before I graduated on the same topic. I can talk about executive functioning and trauma, all of that, nonstop. So I got to do that at a couple conferences. It was very exciting. I got to sit on panels with other people, actually other Black people who specialize in, the other Black clinicians who specialize in working with folks with ADHD. So I was just going to say, IngerShaye, as you were talking about both the trauma and the ADHD, the question that you had asked before was about how did you come to coaching, or would you still be a coach without your ADHD diagnosis, right? I would definitely still be a mental health clinician without my ADHD diagnosis, because I went back to school to get to become a mental health clinician because of a PTSD diagnosis.
Right.
So I got diagnosed with PTSD in my mid-20s. So in my early 40s, I go back to school after being in trauma recovery and working with psychiatrists and psychologists, doing EMDR, trauma therapy, all of that. I got interested in how trauma changes the brain. And I'm like, I want to learn what this is. Okay. Plus, therapy saved my life many times over. So I went back to school to study that. How about 20 years later, in the same university where I initially got diagnosed with PTSD in the College Counseling Center, I then got diagnosed with ADHD. Talk about a full circle moment. But one of the ways I knew that I was going to be working on trauma, and then when I got my ADHD diagnosis, ADHD, was I went back to therapy after the diagnosis, right? Because like I need some help adjusting, right? I've been a Black woman in America for 40 years. This one has thrown me for a loop. How do I deal with this? One of the things that came up in therapy for me was my profession has to be personal. Some people can do things that they're good at. Some people are just happy making money. Some people are okay with the accolades. For me, specifically, how I make money has to be personal and purposeful for me. And I have been wrestling with that most of my life, right? Being a person with a lot of interests, because that's what ADHDers do, who likes to learn a lot of new stuff, pick things up, put them down. I always wanted to learn something new, pick up another profession, all of those things. And people were like, when are you going to pick one? And in this full circle moment in my 40s of learning how my brain really works, when I finally accepted that for me, regardless of how this works for other people, what I do has to be personal, has to be, it has to be purposeful for me. And so I knew I wanted to work with people, both either, with the ADHD and the issues with executive functioning, but also folks who have experienced trauma and they got to go back to work and manage their bills and their lives and their marriages and their children. You need practical skills then too, right? Because your brain is functioning differently. So I also coach folks who are in trauma recovery, not being their therapist, but being their coach on how do you organize the rest of your life while you're healing. I've worked with folks who had traumatic brain injury and brain's literally different, but now you still gotta make your way through life. And I also coach folks who are chronically ill because chronic pain can cause some executive functioning issues, right? So all of those things, that's the reason why my business is called All Things Jay, because for once I did not have to pick just one thing.
I love that.
Yeah, I'm just like,
love that. Yes, you do not
come
have
and
to
tell
just
me
pick
about my whole
one
entire life.
thing.
Yeah.
Yes.
I feel that so deeply as well, because I felt like one of the things that made me get my diagnosis is I just did not have a purpose. I was just like, I don't understand. And I tried to start finding purpose, and I found something that I do really like, and I refuse to quit it. And I'm like, yeah, this is going to be my income stream, because I don't really want to be doing things that I've been like stumbling across before. And just kind of did it because I was making money. I'd be a salesperson in a call center. No, I don't want to do that. So I do actually hear that, and I do understand as well that like coaching someone with ADHD does also, it's helpful when you have that someone who's understanding. We were talking last week with Viv and Kezzy about the fact that ADHD Babes is great because you never have to apologize for your symptoms. And I feel like that would be the same with a coach who also shares maybe some of your symptoms or shares your experience or your condition as well. And that's why I suppose I like to be devil's advocate. Just wanted to see if you loved it that much.
Gotcha.
Love it more than anything in this world. Like it's interesting. I've had that story that many people have a million jobs. I can't count how many jobs either I had and I got fired, or I had and I quit before I got fired. And I didn't know it's because I wasn't as interested anymore. Like, going to gangbusters, then about a couple months in, it's like, nah. And then I worked in a salon, and actually I worked in a salon for many years, even up to the pandemic, still on Saturdays, because I enjoyed it. I found that what I enjoyed was the people. I enjoyed the interaction, and then I was solving people's problems. So I was really kind of doing therapy while people got like a pedicure. And then in my my 40s too, decided to go back to school because I got bored. I was like, what should I do? So I decided to get pregnant and go to school, right? And so,
Winning
why not?
combination.
Yes. But I enjoy being a therapist. I still do. I still do therapy with the clients that I have, but I've really switched mostly to coaching because once I discovered coaching and ADHD coaching, it was like a light bulb went off. It was like my whole life opened up in a way that it never has. And like a lot of people come to me and they're like, there's this thing they know they want to do. There's something more. And they just kind of can't put their finger on it, or they just kind of can't do the things to get there. And especially as you're getting like a little bit older, not that old, a little older, you really want to reach those things and find out what that is. And when you can really sit down and accept your ADHD, and sometimes, as Jay said, just sit down. Like, can we slow down for a minute?
Especially Black women, just rest.
We go. We need rest. We need rest. And I was listening to the person who, I cannot remember her name, so she's in that ministry where it's like rest as a form of protest, right? Because we're told not to rest, and things are built on our backs from 100, 200, 300, 400, 500 years ago. And that's why part of the reason why we work. Yet they say we're lazy, which is something else then we have to deal with. And then we have ADHD. How many people have said, "Oh, well, you didn't turn that thing. You're lazy. Oh, you got stuff all over your house. You can't, clean your dishes. You must be lazy." So when all these things kind of collide, it's really insidious. And I think that's why part of it for me, I guess it's like having ADHD. But when I see those things, I mean, it is joy of my life. I cannot express it. See how much I talk, but it is the one thing that I lose words for because it just makes me so excited to do it every day and to bring this to Black women, especially, just with all that we deal with.
I love that. I love that. I'm feeling it. I feel like maybe I'm just like vibing today. I don't know. I've got this kind of, I don't know what it is, but long day. But I love that. I love that you get to do that and you found it. Some people don't find their passion. They don't find their calling. They don't find what it is they love. And no matter how old you are, when you find it, you found it. And I think that's just amazing. And the fact that you can make a living and, pay your bills and do things you love is always a plus to me, because girls got to eat, you know what I mean? Or pay for the food that has gone off in my fridge, should I say.
I think it's really like just listening to you both and how passionate you are, and obviously interest is very big for people with ADHD. So would you say that needing to have purpose and passion in life is like a big thing that a lot of clients bring to you guys? Or if not, then are there any common themes in what kind of work you're doing with your clients?
I would say the theme that I see a lot, because most of my clients are women, and women of color, or someone who specifically wanted a woman of color as a coach. The theme that I see a lot is, to be honest, because one of the, how do I say this? I think one of the reasons why my clients come to me and they talk about everything that's wrong with them, and they talk in terms of deficit, is because a lot of times people don't get the diagnosis or the help until how they are has become a real inconvenience for someone else. So children get diagnosed in schools because they're not sitting still as the teacher wants them to sit. So instead of figuring out how we're helping this child, this is what we got to do because they're disrupting the class. So their diagnosis came out of being an inconvenience for someone else. My clients come to me because I'm on an improvement plan at work and I don't want to lose my job because I keep being late or I keep forgetting to turn things in on time. So we start in this place of crisis and fear And how I am has finally really caught up with me. And it's a huge inconvenience for either my employer or my spouse or my children. So starting there, they start with, I'm here because something is terribly wrong with me, right? And so starting there and telling my clients, you may be here because you feel like you've inconvenienced other people. I am so glad you're here, because what we're going to talk about is how strong you are. The fact that you've got survival down pat because you've done it. Like, you know how to do that. You know how to do survival. My job is, and I don't feel like my job is done until we get you from survival to stability to thriving. And one of the ways we get there is for you to figure out where you're strong, accept that you're different, be okay with it, and then structure a life where you get to be your authentic self in every way. No more masking, no more code switching, and no more apologizing for who you are and how you are. When my clients get there, I know I've done my job. Yeah. And we all deserve it. Yes. This is what I say to women all the time. You deserve to be your authentic self everywhere you go. Being someone else drains your battery, and you need that energy. You need that energy to fully be yourself. Take up room, take up space, and don't apologize. And I coach people out of apologizing, right? For needing to ask questions, needing it to be repeated. Can you write it down for me? Everybody has needs. Yes. You shouldn't be ashamed of them. Yes.
Yeah.
Right?
Preach.
Right? But if
I'm in church right now, by the
right?
way.
Yeah. Wow. And be yourself, right? You said like being yourself unapologetically. I have so many people where it's like, well, you're too loud. You're too much. I've got too much hair. Like, I'm just, too, right? And when you're living that life, like I said, like I always talk about like the energy in your bandwidth. I liked Keisha Lance Brown. She was that mayor of DC. She said it's her capacity. And when she decided not to run, and she almost was vice president, but she decided not to run again, and people had even given her money. She had disclosed her ADHD, and she was like, she realized her capacity was full. Yeah. Right. And so accepting that and giving people their money back, which everybody's like, you can keep it. She was like, no, I have integrity. So, I also feel like, we're still about the parts of it, having empathy, like doing the things we need to do. Like, we also have a big streak of integrity. Like, part of the reason why I think we feel bad is because we don't want to inconvenience other folks. Right. But you only come for coaching or something because you have to have some pain to want to change. Right. So you can't change without the pain. And, it's just as Jay saying, it's like, yes, there's some pain. Let's work on what that is. But let's work on it in a way where then you get to be who you are. And then that's okay. And understand that, your other people, that are neurotypical, they bring stuff too. Right? And you put up with that on a daily basis. So you too are allowed to bring your stuff with you. And that's okay. And like I said, I know, like I was told to sit down and shut up. I better be a good girl. And not make a lot of waves. And now that I'm out loud and proud, it kind of scares even my family. I don't know if you guys had that where your family was kind of like, what's going on here?
She doesn't care. She doesn't care. She's not over apologizing. Who is she? Yeah, it's so liberating, but I think it's often very destabilizing for others in your life because, as you said, you've gone through your whole life thinking you're an inconvenience, I'm a problem, and I've particularly found that to be challenging in friendships. But I've just got to that point where I don't care anymore, because if I'm so concerned about you, then what about me? And
well, if we lived in a more accepting world, we wouldn't need a diagnosis. We wouldn't need a diagnosis if we lived in a more accepting world. And if we weren't so goal-oriented and results-driven and consumer and trying to live up to capitalism's expectations of what can you produce and what can you consume, right? So if we had space for who you are, you're different. Oh, okay. You can spot all of these patterns so much quicker than other people can. Okay, well, you might be a little forgetful, but you bring this other stuff too, right?
Mm.
And we consider the whole person instead of the things, again, that are an inconvenience or that aren't exactly the same as everyone else's. I work with my chronic illness folks who might not be able to earn money anymore. So now they're questioning, what is my value to the world? And we have to talk about your ability to make a check or then spend money may be an inconvenience for capitalism, but you're a human being and not a product. And this is not a transaction, this is your life. Right?
Yeah.
And also, last thing, when Black women start saying no, other people have to work. Okay? So you will not be encouraged, you will not be applauded, and you will not be celebrated when you start saying no, because other people have to then step up. So I tell my clients that when you hit that resistance, understand that the world expects us to work and die. And when you decide to do something else, other people are not gonna like it.
But you're gonna
okay.
love it.
You're gonna love it.
Yeah.
And they'll learn to accept it if they want to stay in your life. Period.
I get that.
Wow. We can just wrap this up now.
Yeah.
So powerful. And I think that it's so deep that people don't understand the layers to this. So I think, like, you've both covered so many critical things that, you know, people might just see, oh, ADHD, and, you know, they associate it with children. But I think especially having late diagnosis and all the things we've covered, it's really important to be able to have the support that you guys offer, to rebalance that sense of self and how we engage with the world and how we engage with those around us, and just most importantly ourselves. So yeah, I'm just blown away. I mean, I knew this was going to be great, but wow.
Do you take international clients? Because I want to ask you guys, because I know that you're really reputable, but most importantly, because I feel like America is a bit further with coaching, but not only just coaching, it's also further with Black women coaching. And I feel like a lot of our members and maybe our listeners will want to know if they can find someone who looks like them or they connect with that may not be in their country and they can still get help. Is it kind of only people in your local area, or do you also take international clients as well?
Well, this is why I was starting the International Association of Black ADHD Coaches. Starting a directory now, so we're getting names and we're putting it on a directory. This way, like, again, you can find somebody who looks like you if you would like. I also would like to get some allied professionals on there, so you're able to get a diagnosis from somebody who understands ADHD and understands you. So we're starting that, but there is a website and you can leave your name on the website. Coaching, yes, coaching, you're not bound by, when you're a therapist, you're bound by the state, with here in the United States, the state you're in, where you have licensure. With coaching, you're allowed to do it everywhere. I have international clients as we speak. So yes, and even if I can't take you or Jay can't take you, like, we will be able to then, you know, find a coach that might be more appropriate for you. Because I also think it's important to say not every coach is for everybody. Just because I'm a Black woman doesn't mean I'm the coach for you, right? So sometimes it's like, oh, when I talk to somebody for a few minutes, it's like, I know who might be better for you. But most of my clients are 35, 40 and above, right? So if you're 22, I'm not probably not going to be the coach for you. Yeah. But I know a couple of women, some dynamic young women that are coming through the space that I'm like, I know exactly who could help you. So yes, it is an international, we can do whatever it is that we need to do, which is great. Yeah, it's really great, because people do reach out to me from all over the world. You would be shocked, because you know, in different parts of the world, you can't even use those letters ADHD.
Really?
I mentioned last week when I said it to my family in
Oh,
Nigeria.
I
And
thought you
said,
said that to me.
no, not to you, but it was in the discussion in the episode last week. And, you know, I'm Nigerian originally, and mental health, what is that? No, you just pray. You just pray.
Mm.
And so it's a myth. These letters you're talking of, please, just go and pray and you'll be fine. You know, so I think it's very important to have that visibility, because, you know, there's so many nuances culturally. You know, as Black women, we can start there, but if you unpack that, there's so many other, you know,
layers
layers to it. And I was going to ask a question. I think my question was more so, you've mentioned different things in terms of where to start when someone is looking for a coach. You know, you've mentioned being comfortable, but do you think that there are staple things that someone who's like, listen, my life is just, I need help. Maybe it's not therapy, I need to focus on my strength. What's a good starter pack for them to consider how to approach different coaches, what kind of coaches they may need? Do you have any insight on that?
I can go. I take international clients. I have clients in London currently. I've got clients in Canada, look, as long as our time zones overlap to where I'm not up too late or I'm not up too early, contact me. I love working with, it is mainly women, but I do take men. I love working with women all over the country. I have some Nigerian clients. I have some West Indian clients, and there are some nuances there too. It's clear that, you know, Black people, Black women especially, we're not a monolith, and it is really important that you have a conversation with a person before you sign any coaching contracts or anything with them, because there does need to be a rapport. There does need to be a real foundation, some kind of a click energy vibe, something, right? Because that can make a huge difference to how quickly you get to your goals. I was going to say, CHAD, which is one of the organizations that sponsors the international conference, they have a really great article on their website about what ADHD coaching is, and even what questions to ask a potential coach.
I tell you what, everyone, I'll get that link and I'll put it in the show notes so that you can just click it right from this episode as well.
Yes, it's a great article because it really breaks down the difference between what a coach will do, a therapist can do, or maybe even an educational tutor would do based on what problems you want to work on and when and why you would, you know, choose one over the other. And it gives a very clear idea about what ADHD coaching can do.
Great resource. Thank you.
No
I think
problem.
they have the same things on ADA. I'll give you that, and ACO. So that's the coaching organization. They also run the conference, the International ADHD Conference that's coming up this year in Dallas, Texas. I don't know if you're speaking again, Jay. I'm hoping to have 2 spots this year. But if you go on any of those 3, CHAD, ADA, or ACO, you'll be able to not only find out what you need to do in your journey, but that's where the coaches are right now. So it's just a place to start.
And if anyone wanted to become a coach and wanted to follow in your footsteps, where would you say that would be a good place for them to start?
There's a few coach or organizations, ACA, and I cannot tell you exactly what that means. A lot of people will go to ACA for training. Coach Approach, that's my favorite. They'll go there for training. I know Lori Dupar's like international ADHD coaches, something or other. But Laura, if you look up Lori Dupar, her
she got a podcast.
Lori, I don't think Lori has a podcast, but she's been doing this like for a long time. But
long time.
I really, like I said, Coach Approach, I feel is the most Coach Approach is the most comprehensive. I know a lot of people do go through ACA, and you know, some coaches I will say will be ICF certified, some will not. If you care about that and you care, you don't necessarily have to have a coach that's ICF certified. Also, Jody Sleeper Triplet. JST coaching.
Mhm.
That's more for parents, or if you're doing like young adults. And Cindy Gorich's PST, and that's parent coaching. So there's different realms of ADHD coaching. So to look at all those different ones, and I've had coaching, I've had mentor coaching, and I'm a psychotherapist, so I've been, dealing in this type of realm for quite a long time. So again, some people have what's called an ICF certification, not necessarily something that you have to have, but it is kind of if you're looking for a certain standard to have that. But also when people go through specific ADHD coaching, they have a skill set that you might not have if you were just like a life coach that decided that they wanted to focus on ADHD, because it's kind of the flavor of the month right now. I think that that's important. So asking them questions, asking about ADHD. What do you know about ADHD? What don't they know? How many clients do they have with ADHD? How long have they been doing this? Things like that, and getting a vibe from them there, not just sitting there taking the information I give you and then again signing a contract, because I think coaching should be a right, but I mean coaching is expensive. It can be very expensive.
I'm really curious, is there like a set time limit to this, or do you just kind of go person to person? Sorry, this is just me like coming up with this. Curious.
Jay, I'll talk for I can talk about this subject for you. So you guys better watch out.
We can have you back, it's fine.
Like she's here every week. This is my favorite topic. I would say very quickly then because ADHD is so individualized, there are themes that run through, but my ADHD is going to be different than your ADHD. It's going to be different than someone else's ADHD. So it takes as long as it takes for you to do your coaching. And some people that come and you have to come with me for 3 months. I should start out. You have to do 3 months because you can't really get much done, in a month or like every other week. Like Jay said, you have to commit to this. So after you commit to this, like 3 months, some people are like, I've done 3 months and I really feel like I'm good, and they go. I've had people I've had for years, because for them, they're still working through their ADHD, but also it's like they need the support of, some accountability, or different things come up, different parts of their lives. Us with women, you met a guy, and you broke up with him, and then you've met another one and you married him, different part of life. Then you had a baby, your hormones are going through all of this. Then you maybe have 3 kids and you're still managing your ADHD. Then they go off to school. You're an empty nester, you're managing your ADHD. And then you go through perimenopause and menopause, managing your ADHD with your hormones coming along the whole way. You really should have a conversation about ADHD and hormones in women, because that's a whole nutshell in itself. So, it all depends. So again, some people can come through and they decide that they want to be finished at 3 months, but people know when they are finished. This is the thing where it's a partnership. It is a partnership coaching. I'm not here to tell you to do anything. All right, that's not why I'm here. Your life. I would never presume to say anything about your life. What I know is ADHD. And when you've gone through, talked to me or been with me or been my client long enough for you to say, hey, I think I want to do something different, then, please. And you can always, come back in for check-ins, or, sometimes people just come at the point where like, I just really want some accountability, because those are the things that we have to get things done. So again, a very long answer to the question.
No, it's warranted. So
I was just going to say what I talk to clients about when they are asking, how do I budget for this, or what should I estimate, that kind of thing. So I tell my clients, mentally and financially, budget for at least 3 months and then reevaluate. For some people, they're good at that 3 months, because I spend a lot of time on psychoeducation and educating them about their executive functioning, what ADHD looks like. And for some folks, that's good enough, and they've got what they need to move forward. The door's always open, like IngerShaye says, for different phases of life when you might need something different. You may change jobs and be in a more high pressure career. Now, how do I manage this? You may have changed social circles, right? Because of marriage, because of having kids. And sometimes us ADHDers can struggle with social adjustments, and you need that support. So it's meant to be a support that you can access often. If anyone is looking to locate me or find me for that support, I'm at All Things Jay, so ALLTHINGSJAY.com. I do a free 30-minute phone call with any potential client. That's for you to ask questions and for me to make sure that we're a good fit for what it is you're looking for. That's vital to me because, I don't want to take money from someone that I can't help or that I can't, there's no connection and where we're going to work well together. Because there's a lot of trust involved, right? There's a lot of trust involved and vulnerability involved in you telling me, some of the things that you felt like were big weaknesses your whole life, and then feeling confident that I'm the person who can help you get to those goals, right? So that is so important. You've got to make sure that there's a good fit. Fit makes a huge difference in doing this kind of work. I say the same thing for your therapist. Be a savvy consumer, but more than anything, make sure there's a good fit.
Yeah, definitely. You're way ahead of me there. I was just about to ask about your website, so you've already got in there. So you've already got Jay's website. And just to confirm, you're accepting new clients?
I am.
Perfect.
Yes.
And you, IngerShaye, so I feel like there might need to be 2 websites. How would people contact you or the International Association of Black ADHD Coaches?
So I am IngerShaye. So I'm IngerShaye.com. I'm at IngerShaye everywhere. The only IngerShaye, I guess, out there.
Unique.
I'll spell it INGERSHAYE. So if you look up IngerShaye, my face will appear, I assume. And then for the coaches, it's the International Black ADHD Coaches. So it's TIBAC.com. Also, you can get there off of my website. I'm not sure when this is coming out. I have groups sometimes. I have group coaching initiatives. I think it's coming out Monday, and I think this will be out by now. But I'll run another one in the fall. Because again, a lot of people have come to me, so many people, I can't take everybody one-on-one. And again, some people I think would do so much better in a group and it could have more impact. Today, do I have coaching openings? I don't even know. I'd have to look. Because sometimes like I do and then I don't. And then like I said, I'm working on the association and I do speaking. There's a lot of things that are happening, and my son's graduating from high school in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
So
they grow so fast.
It does. But I just want people to know it can happen for all you moms out there. It can happen. So yeah, a lot's happening. So I don't know. All I do know is
I'm guessing.
Get in touch with me. And I do always put aside a few hours to have consultation calls. So again, if I can't help you, try to get you somewhere else. If you just need to have a conversation, because some people just need a little bit of advice or thoughts or get, what path they need to be on, or just somebody that can be like, oh my goodness, I finally talked to somebody, a Black woman with ADHD. And that's all they may need. So I always make sure to have some time in my schedule for that, because I think it's important. It's funny, somebody was saying, all these people, like, you don't have to talk to them. And this is a white person. I was like, yes, I did. They've been waiting forever to have somebody to talk to. It's like, you right. That's like your privileged self. Because I was like, that's not how it is for us. And that's not how we do each other, right? We stand for each other. So I always have some slots, at least to have a conversation with somebody. So if you need me, reach out to me and we'll see what we can do.
I love that, just because obviously, like, I'm guessing, I don't know what the state of the mental health is in America. I'm guessing as well, if it's dependent on whether or not you have the capacity for insurance as well. or to pay for it yourself. But even with our services here, I'm on a wait list that they just said to me, the wait list is several years. No indication, just several. They'll be in touch. That was 5 months ago. So you have to kind of be able to go and help yourself. And that's why I wanted to kind of get into, went to get into like whether or not you have availability, because even just sitting here now, I feel like at least if I could get a coach, then that would at least be starting on my journey of healing and of understanding myself, even if I can't get access to psychotherapy at the moment. So if anybody else was kind of looking for where to start when they're waiting on a waiting list, we've got Jay and you've got IngerShaye. I will also make sure that your websites are on the show notes for anyone to find you, but all 3 websites as well. And if you are going to do a group session in the fall, IngerShaye, let us know. We'll do a shout out, see if anybody wants to join that as well. I've really enjoyed having you. I'm definitely going to be in touch with you both again.
I want more. This is
great. I don't want to hang up. I'm like, dinner time soon. So but I've really loved talking to you ladies.
Thank you for having me.
I've learned so much. So yes, thank you everyone for listening. Renee and I have just been sitting here learning loads, haven't we?
Yeah, I'm just like, I'm speechless. I'm like, can we just like agree that you're both going to come back at some point? Can we get that,
we got
great. Yeah.
Thank you. Back.
Thank you guys. So don't forget, you can join us bi-weekly. The next episode will be available in 2 weeks. And if you've got a message with us, leave us a voice note or send us a message, and we'll be sure to try and get back to you in our Dear Babes episodes. Yeah. Thanks for listening.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of ADHD Babes, the podcast. If you're a Black woman or non-binary person and needs help and support in managing your ADHD or advice on diagnosis, please visit ADHDBabes.com. No clinical diagnosis is required to join. Join us in 2 weeks for a new episode. Until then, all the love from the ADHD Babes team.